So we are starting chapter 6 today. Chapter 6 is all about exponents. So today is basically just an introduction to exponents, and each day we'll get a little farther and a little farther into them. As I said, the schedule at the moment is a little up in the air. It depends on some things going on at home and if I need to take some time off. But for now, we're just going to start with day 1 and keep plugging along. So the beginning of your notes, just start with the basics of an exponent. So this number is the exponent. It tells us how many times you're multiplying this number. So if you have just 1 3, that's just 3, right? 3 to the second power, or 3 squared, means 3 times 3, which you know is 9, correct? 3 to the third power just means you have 3 3s. So 3 times 3 times 3, which, yes, is 27. If you want to write it out as 27 at 9, that's fine. But I just basically want you to see that the exponent means you have that number, which we call the base, written out that many times. Most of you already know this. What are your questions? All right. There is not a space for this in your notes. You can just write it off to the side. I use both of these terms already. The big number, that's the base. That's the number that's actually being multiplied. And then the exponent's the little number to the upper right. That's how many times it's being multiplied. We've used exponents when we did order of operations, so yeah, you know some of this already. It's a review. Example 1, we are going to write in exponential form. So m times m times m times m times m would be m to the 5th. Very good. All right. What about this one? Very good. -2 to the second. And 5 to the third. Now, do the parentheses matter here? Yeah. They do matter, yes. Because when it's parentheses, it means that the base is -2. It's -2 times -2. If you drop the parentheses, that's like saying 2 times 2 and then you make it negative. So pay attention to the parentheses when you have negatives. If the negative is being taken to that exponent, you need the parentheses. All right. Ice times ice times ice. Yes, I was waiting for it. Okay. There's actually a couple different ways you can do this. You could break this one into the i's and the c's and the e's. You could do I to the third, c to the third, e to the third. If you already wrote that, that's fine. But when the whole quantity is being multiplied, we can just put it in parentheses and take the whole thing to that exponent. Both answers would be correct. What are your questions so far? All right, example 2. We are going to write an algebraic expression for the following. The square of x minus the cube of y. X to the second minus y to the third. Yep, cubed means third, squared means second. What are your questions? All right, part B. the square of the sum of A and B. So are we squaring A or are we squaring the sum of A and B?
The sum.
Yeah, so what do I need to do? Put them in parentheses. Good. Parentheses tells you what you're going to do first. So if we want to square the sum, we have to find the sum first. So you'd have to add them before you square it. Very good. What are your questions? The cube of the difference of twice x and y.
So, parentheses 2x minus y, parentheses to the third.
Perfect. Good. See how it says and in between the twice y? So that's kind of where the minus sign's going to go. And by kind of, I mean it is. Okay? If it said twice the difference, then the 2 would go on the outside. Do you know what I'm saying? But since it was twice the x, only the x is being multiplied by the 2. Then you got to subtract the y. That's how you find the difference. And we want to cube the whole difference, so we need the parentheses next. Questions? Are we good? D, the sum of the cube of twice x and the square of w. The sum of, so we want to add the cube of twice x and the square of w. So the and marks my what?
Subtract. I mean add.
Yeah. So kind of break it up. We want the sum of something and something. So the and is where my sum means adding. Okay, so that's going to be where the plus sign goes. And then just sort of do it in halves. The cube of twice x.
So 2x third.
2x to the third, good. Plus
W squared.
very good. The key, though, for that first part, yeah, you need parentheses because if you do 2x and then the cubed without the parentheses, you're not cubing twice x. You're cubing x, then taking it twice. So you got to remember the order of operations, too. If you overdo the parentheses, I think that's better. Like if order of operations would have taken care of it and you put parentheses anyway, it's less likely to hurt you than if you needed the parentheses and you didn't put them. You know what I mean? What are your questions? All right. Example 3. Find the area. How do I find the area?
I would multiply.
Yeah, you multiply the length times the width. Good. So for this problem, I'm going to do 5y times 2y, which is what? 10y squared. When you're doing a real life problem, you should label it. When we're talking about area, it's square units, which is written as unit squared.
Be careful on these.
Be careful on these. Be careful on these. Okay. Does anyone feel like they already know what I'm about to say?
Y'all.
Yeah, go. Tell me.
Okay, so 4x to the third is
both the 4 and the x, but on the bottom it's just the x.
Very good. So here the 4 is also being taken to the third power. It's 4x times 4x times 4x. Down here it's just 4 times x times x times x. See the difference?
Yeah. Oh, that's what we got it right? We got
Mm-hmm.
that?
All right. Any questions? Here's the next one.
The first one means I forgot already. Oh, negative. No, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Then you add the negative, right?
Right. So when we write it out, it would be negative, and the part that's being taken to the exponent is just the 2's. This is one of those places where the negative or the parentheses don't really matter. It's easier. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Here the parentheses matter. When you write it out here, if you didn't put the parentheses, if you put negative 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you'd still get the same answer. So when you write it here, it's just trying to show you that here are the 2's being taken to the fourth, and then we're going to make it negative. But if you wrote this part without the parentheses, you'd still get the right answer. All right? Down here, they're absolutely important because what does this mean?
Negative 2 times.
Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Which answer would end up being negative? The first one or the second one? First one. What about the second one? It would end up being positive. Very good. All right.
Is it 1 plus 3 times 3?
Yeah, the first one is 1 plus 3 times 3. What does the second one mean?
1 plus 3 times 1 plus 3.
Yeah, that's actually, you could write it out like you said.
Oh, yeah.
1 plus 3 times 1 plus 3, which would end up being 4 times 4, right? Same thing. But yeah, typically we just go ahead and add them, especially if they're like terms like 1 and 3. So on this one, if you actually did the math, you'd get 10, right? 9 plus 1, 10. Down here, you'd get 16. So you can see that they're not the same thing. Questions? All right. We are going to simplify.
Oh, we're going to
Oh. Yeah.
So yes, this one, the exponent is only with the 3. So we would do that first. Remember the order of operations. There's no parentheses, so next we do exponents. 3 times 3 times 3, you are correct, is 27. Do you know what 5 times 27 is?
I don't know, but I bet you tell me.
135.
See, y'all missing that. I couldn't say that to my mom, and she was going to smack
Say what?
No, but I want you to tell me.
Oh, I didn't take it as a smart aleck comment, but maybe I will. You know, I've had 2 weeks of rest. Give me a couple days to get my patience. All right, part B. So yes, I already heard you say this is going to be 2 plus 16. There aren't parentheses around the 2 and the 4, so don't add those first. You got to take care of the exponent first. That is 4 times 4, which, yes, 16. And 2 plus 16 is 18. Good.
Go. Come on now. New year, new semester, same old bitch Monday.
Of course. Yes, that was not my New Year's resolution. Give up homework. All right, next. Ooh, this is a good one.
It's negative 36.
It is negative 36. You're taking all the fun. Yes, there are not parentheses around the original negative 6. So it's not negative 6 times negative 6. It's negative 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Deal with the negative last. Negative 36. What are your questions? All right, part D. Oh, man. 2 to the 5th. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 16. 32.
Right.
Yes, so this is 32 minus, obviously 2 times 2 is 4, which is 28. Good.
I'm on a roll.
Questions? Part E. Yep, so we have to do the parentheses first. 7 minus 3 is 4, and 4 squared equals 16. Quiet down. We're getting there. Oh my goodness.
Oh, this might be a breeze. Come on. This would be a
Oh, let's give everyone a minute.
Hold on, I'm stuck on the face.
Well, first you need to write it down.
Wait, so 9.
That's where we'll start.
9, yeah. 9. You
gotta take your time.
You gotta do parentheses first. You have to do parentheses first.
I think I can do it.
Hey, you're ruining my YouTube video.
Oh, I forgot something. Do it again. I forgot to do that.
All right, I heard a few people say we're going to start with parentheses, so don't deal with this guy yet. Don't deal with this guy yet. We can start in here. This will be what? 4 minus 1, which is 3. Good. This is going a little slower than I would go, but that's just fine. Keep the minus. Deal with these parentheses next. So this is going to be 25 and 9 and negative 8. Good. Now, like I said, I would have probably left this guy alone and just gone straight order of operations, do what's in the parentheses, do what's in the parentheses, then deal with your exponents. It doesn't matter, though, since this exponent had nothing to do with these parentheses. If you did it the way it's done on the board, you're still going to get the same answer. If you left a 3 squared like I instructed you to do, way to go, you're a great listener, but it's not going to matter. All right, again, parentheses would be the next step. So we are going to turn the 3 minus 1 into a 4 and the 25 minus 9 into a 16. This is actually where I would have gone ahead and made the 9 and the negative 8, but it doesn't really matter. We're all on the same step right now. What would be next?
Dividing the By 3?
Yes, we're actually going to do both the division steps. Since they're not going to affect each other, you can do them at the same time. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now, there's a few ways to approach this one. I am going to think of the 16 as being positive and just leaving this as a minus sign. If you want to pop it in with the 16 and take care of the signs a little earlier than I'm doing, that's fine. So I'm going to drop the minus. I'm going to do positive 16 divided by negative 8, which is negative 2. Now you can see I have a minus negative, which is a positive 5. Okay? If you thought of it as a negative 16 divided by a negative 8, you would have got a plus 2 here. Same thing. You end up with a 5. Questions? All right, example 5. Now we're going to practice plugging these values in. My biggest piece of advice here is anytime you plug something in, you keep it in parentheses. Exactly. So this is 4 parentheses negative 2 to the third. If you didn't put the parentheses, it might look like 4 minus 2 to the third, which it's not. So be very careful here, okay? Parentheses around the negative 2 means that the negative is also being taken to the exponent. So it's negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Very good. Questions? All right, here is example 6. We're going to evaluate if R equals 2 and S equals negative 4. And we're looking at 3R plus 2S in parentheses squared. All right, what am I going to do?
Add in evaluations.
Substitute. Yes, so I'm going to take the R out. I'm going to put a 2 in. I'm going to take the S out. I'm going to put a negative 4 in. Now, personally, I would actually have that and that. But it's not really going to matter here since this 2 is already on the outside of another set of parentheses. But just to be safe, I always do it that way. Okay? So, got to work inside this parentheses. These parentheses, I mean. So it's 6 minus 8. Good. Which is?
4.
Positive 4 because it's a negative times a negative. All right, here is example 7. We are going to evaluate if A equals negative 3 and B equals 4 for A times B minus A squared. This is, I believe, our last example of the day.
Right.
All right, what do you want to do first? Good. Take the A's out, put a negative 3 in. Take the B's out, put a 4 in. All right, what should I do
The
next?
exponent.
Do the exponents. Good.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm gonna disagree here. Okay, you're gonna get the same answer. I think you should wait on that one though, and make that a 9. Why is that a minus 9?
Because it's gonna turn it positive, but then like negative and positive.
Yeah. So this part just here would give us a positive 9, but I still have this minus sign. Okay. You cannot see, oh, it's a minus negative. I'm going to make it a plus because technically there's 2 negatives here. So it's a minus, negative, negative, which is still a minus. Does that make sense? Okay. That's why I wanted to slow that down a second. Now I'm going to multiply. So it's negative 12 minus 9. Like I said, you'll end up in the same spot. Doesn't really matter. What do you end up with? Negative 21.
Hey, we're done. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Today we learned.
Yes, we are still going to summarize our notes each day.
About exponents.
So,
We learned more about
today, let's see if we can see the.
It's dark. Oh.
I like this purple.
Doesn't it look like Khan Academy?
Oh.
Yeah, sure. Whatever that is.
Oh, it's a math website. He writes in on black.
Oh,
that's
she's talking
no,
about
you
dude.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Way more rich and famous than me. London math hasn't really caught on the way Khan Academy did. Okay, so today we learned about exponents. Now, I realize it was a review, so if you want to put today we reviewed exponents, or today we discussed exponents further, or something like that. All right, here comes your homework.